on the SPFC stage. Ding-Su and Junho were confused about why Sooho was in Russia, as they were aware that he was headed for England. The director then contacted them, inquiring about Sooho, but they informed the director that they were unable to reach him. The director suggested that they construct a defensive wall, as Sooho's territory had been designated as the 13th area of Seoul, and the bureau would manage the easier dungeons. The director hoped that the Sooho Guild would join as the advance team in the event of a level 7 dungeon appearing. Junho replied that he was unable to make a decision on his own and needed to wait for Sooho's return. Junho was uncertain about the feasibility of managing the responsibilities of being the 13th area and raiding level 7 dungeons simultaneously. He considered the prospect of being part of the advance team for level 7 dungeons as a high-risk proposition, as they would receive preferential treatment in exchange for risking their lives. However, he felt that it was unnecessary to take on such risks. Korea was in turmoil due to Lee Sun-woo's challenge and the 13th area issue. Meanwhile, the doctor was en route to meet Sooho and was speaking with him on the phone. The doctor asked for Sooho's assistance in eliminating the golems that were pursuing him. Sooho appeared riding on a wyvern and launched an attack on one of the golems, causing it to collide into nearby buildings. He then summoned fire fairies and used a fire tornado to attack the other golem. After landing, Sooho finished off the remaining golem. Impressed, Dr. Toddler approached Sooho and snapped a photo of him and the wyvern. Sooho explained to the doctor that the Russians painted the wyvern to avoid mistaking it as an enemy. The doctor expressed gratitude, mentioning that he purchased the priciest translator when he heard Sooho was coming. Sooho asked if they were in London, observing the devastated state of the city. The doctor informed him that the situation in England, particularly in London, was dire and that it becomes even more hazardous after sunset. Sooho commanded Biryong to return, and the doctor was captivated by the sight of the beast summoning portal. Meanwhile, people on Sooho's territory were amazed to see a wyvern emerge from the portal. One person reassured them that the creatures at the beast farm were friendly. In the car, the doctor was pleased to see such a large creature entering the beast farm and assumed it was at level 3. The doctor continued to express his happiness in finally meeting Sooho, but Sooho suspected that the doctor intended to use him for experiments. The doctor informed Sooho that England's new capital is New Dover and that his lab was located there. Sooho questioned why they didn't just meet in New Dover, but the doctor explained that he had ventured out to collect materials for his research. He added that there had recently been a massive bombing in London, which allowed him to obtain ample tissue samples and blood crystals from the dead monsters. The doctor then revealed that he is currently exploring the feasibility of creating a permanent teleportation portal, similar to Sooho's beast farm portal. The doctor speculated that the monster teleportation portals that appear from time to time likely function similarly and believed that if they could utilize this technique, even if monsters were to conquer the skies and seas, they could travel anywhere in the world in a matter of minutes. He acknowledged that the blockage of air and sea routes is a problem unlikely to be resolved in the near future and emphasized the importance of preparing beforehand to avoid being isolated and ensure continued survival for humankind. The doctor asked Sooho the reason for their meeting, but their conversation was abruptly interrupted when the road in front of them exploded. They observed a humpback whale being attacked by a shark-like creature and fell into the water. A rescue team arrived at the scene, and one of its members recognized the doctor's car and said he would find the doctor. However, after diving underwater, the rescuer saw the car was already empty and the shark-like creature still pursuing the whale, but the whale continued to dodge the shark's attacks and leapt out of the water. The rescue team considered shooting, but stopped when they saw people on the whale's fin. Sooho used a tornado to block the shark, and the rescue team recognized the skill as that of the Dragon Knights. Sooho summoned his fire fairies and launched an attack on the shark while it was still in the air. The rescuers then opened fire once the whale was at a safe distance from the shark. The doctor was astounded by Sooho's actions, while Sooho engaged in conversation with the whale as they both landed back in the water. The shark hit the rocks and died, resulting in Sooho leveling up and unlocking his water attribute skill. Sooho and the doctor sat and watched the whale playing in the water. The doctor explained that whales are becoming extinct due to sea monster attacks and that the whale was lucky to have met Sooho. Sooho then mentioned that this town was at the edge of the world, and the doctor added that England has been pushed to the brink and has no more room to retreat. They are in the middle of building a protective wall. Sooho then inquired about the dimension energy measuring device and asked about its principles. He explained that every time he was measured, he felt like someone was watching him. He asked about the planet he had returned from, which used to be a planet but was now fragmented and appeared as a dungeon. The level 4 dungeon was only a portion of the land and was filled with lizards he had never seen before, instead of the animal friends who used to live there. Sooho asked about his friends, why he hadn't aged in 1,000 years, and who were the people observing him whenever he checked his dimensional energy with the device. Sooho expressed his desire for answers to these questions to the doctor, who specialized in these topics. The doctor informed Sooho that his questions and interest in the Korean language and Hangul are linked. The doctor then led Sooho to his underground lab, which was built to withstand a nuclear bomb and is not accessible to anyone but him. The doctor showed Sooho various devices and explained their functions. The doctor also displayed some drawings, which were pictures taken from dungeons over the past 2 months, and pointed out that they found Hangul and Earth languages within the dungeons. He showed Sooho pictures of portals in their levels, including level 3 dungeons in Berlin, level 4 in Oslo, level 5 in Athens, 8 places in Europe, 2 in Africa, 3 in Asia, and the recent one in Korea, with a total of 4. Sooho was puzzled by the different levels and wondered if it was because it was a dungeon, not a new planet. Sooho posed the question about why the planets broke into fragments and were duplicated, to which the doctor responded that it was the most plausible theory about the source of dungeons. Sooho then asked about the fate of the creatures residing on those planets, but the doctor was uncertain and expressed his own curiosity. He explained that this was the reason why he wanted to talk to Sooho, as he hoped that by meeting him, he would uncover the truth behind the formation and collapse of dungeons, which has bewildered them and resulted in various theories being proposed. The doctor took hold of Sooho's hand and emphasized his desire to understand this mystery. However, one day, the creator of Hangul that he had been eager to meet reached out to him. The doctor asked Sooho to work with them to find the answers they sought. Sooho was somewhat disappointed, as he believed the doctor didn't have any answers. The doctor then presented him with a memory stone and instructed him to place his hands on it and close his eyes. When Sooho did so, he was immediately met with the feeling of being observed. He opened his eyes in surprise. The doctor explained that although there are variations, all highly sensitive awakeners have felt somewhat uneasy when using the memory stone. Sooho questioned if the memory stone was the basis for the dimensional energy measuring device, and the doctor confirmed this to be true. The doctor further stated that they did not create the memory stone and that it descended from the sky during the disaster, along with the portals. The memory stone's purpose took some time to uncover, but the discovery of it and the God Stone, which also fell during the disaster, led to the establishment of the dimensional industry. Although the Great Disaster caused severe damage in Europe, it was also seen as a blessing from a researcher's perspective. The doctor explained that thanks to the information stored in the memory stone, they were able to develop numerous devices, including the stone case. The memory stone can exchange information with anything it comes into contact with. The doctor asked Sooho to place his hands on the device and was amazed to see that Sooho's dimensional energy was B rank in just 3 months. Sooho realized that it was a portable measuring device, which the doctor confirmed and planned to further miniaturize. The doctor also showed Sooho another device created with the memory stone that can measure a person's physical information, such as strength and agility. This way, they can classify awakeners based not only on their dimensional energy, but also their physical abilities, allowing for more effective combat team. Sooho confirmed that no awakener has been able to view not only their own physical attributes, but also those of others. The doctor then proposed that Sooho test the device, but when Sooho placed his hands on it, it malfunctioned and displayed an error. Sooho asked the doctor about the origin of the memory stones, and the doctor informed him that they are mined from the planet Aruka. Meanwhile, Lee Sungwoo arrived at Sooho's territory and met Gunwoo. The doctor explained that memory stones are abundant in that area, comparing them to transmission devices, saying that the high elves of Aruka use them for communication across the planet. The doctor revealed information they obtained from some visiting elves from Aruka. They told the doctor that on Aruka, the high elves can use memory stones to view other people's dimensional energy level, class, and other important characteristics. Sooho was shocked upon hearing this and wondered if the status window he sees is the same as that seen by the high elves. Sooho tried checking the status window, but it suddenly glitches. The doctor then left to fix the device and said goodbye. Sooho looked at the lab and saw reports on his writings and estimated that the author of the writings was at least 200 years old. He decided to go to Aruka as they may have information about the entity observing him and the secrets surrounding the Great Disaster and the appearance of dungeons. The guide arrived, and Suho asked if he could reach the portal he was pointing to. The guide told him that it was the South Portal E101 in London and asked if Suho wanted to participate in clearing the portal dungeon, to which Suho agreed. The doctor was perplexed after finding that the device was functioning properly but had malfunctioned when Suho used it. An S-rank awakener named David came to see Suho, but the doctor informed him that Suho had already left and asked David to try the device, which worked fine. The doctor complimented David's high stats, to which David replied that one must have at least 4 digits to be considered impressive and said goodbye. The doctor then discovered that the device's limit was only 999, so he retrieved Suho's data and increased the limit of the device. The doctor was shocked by the result. Suho arrived at the location as the guide informed him that it was a level 5 dungeon filled with giant grasshoppers and there were 18 hours left until the dungeon broke. They then saw a group of helicopters battling a monster on a screen, and the guide explained that more than half of the area was engaged in battles, but that this would not prevent them from raiding dungeons. Suddenly, a chopper crashed in front of them, sending debris flying their way, but Suho saved the guide from the flying metal. The people there recognized Suho as the Dragon Knight. The guide thanked Suho and informed him that the entry procedures had been taken care of and introduced him to the Lawrence Corporation's Phoenix team, one of the best combat teams in England, who had been assigned to Suho as an A-ranked combat team. The leader introduced himself as Robert Cole, captain of the 2nd Phoenix team, but Suho walked past them and stated that he was going to raid the dungeon alone. The guide tried to stop Suho, but he had already entered the portal. The guide was concerned for Suho's safety. Then, David arrived and asked about the Dragon Knight. The guide informed David that Suho had entered the dungeon alone and expressed his worries. David chuckled and said he would be waiting and to let him know when Suho comes out. The guide and the Phoenix team were taken aback when Suho emerged from the dungeon. The Phoenix team was discussing the difficulty of the dungeon and considering giving up, but they were surprised to see Suho come out. David greeted Suho, but just then a fire boar charged at them. David swiftly defended by attacking the boar, sending it flying. David and Suho introduced themselves, and David expressed his desire to meet Suho because he saw how Suho defeated the shark monster and felt they were similar. David explained that he obtained his strength by eating a lot of bananas after seeing Suho's cave paintings. David did so and was eating bananas during his training. David then expressed his desire to see Suho fight a monster using only his strength, and Suho agreed. They entered the dungeon together and cleared a level 5 dungeon 15 times in 40 minutes just before a dungeon break. It was reported that the queen was expected to award Suho with knighthood. Meanwhile, Kim Mizo and the director were discussing how to bring Suho back to Korea, but Kim Mizo was confident that Suho would return after checking online and showing a video of Lee Sungwoo, causing a major disturbance. Suho was at a party and talking to David. David advised him not to be swayed by the champion's provocations, but Suho was confused. David informed him that Lee Sungwoo had challenged him in an interview and referred to him as a psycho murderer. David explained that he fought and lost to Lee Sungwoo and showed the damage Sungwoo did to him. Many subsequent challengers died. David also informed Suho that Lee Sungwoo killed even those who surrendered. Suho asked why, but David didn't have an answer. David advised Suho to stay away from Hero. Suho then saw the news that Lee Sungwoo had attacked Suho's territory. Suho called Junho and was informed that Hero had come and threatened to kill everyone if Suho didn't come out. Junho told Suho that 2 of the wolves had already died, and Suho became furious. He attempted to utilize the system, however, it remained ineffective, and he discovered that the alarms failed to notify him due to the error in the status window. David advised Suho not to go and was certain that Hero had a motive. He explained that for a champion to taunt an awakening that isn't even ranked yet, there was a high probability that something would happen. Suho disregarded David's advice and left anyway. He attempted to summon the wyvern, but failed. Meanwhile, the doctor was watching and was disappointed that Suho was leaving and wanted to keep him in the country longer. The system then returned and Suho saw the messages about the 2 wolves dying. The wyvern then arrived. The doctor was holding an artificial ore called Arukamite, and he deduced that Park Sooho's abilities were the same as the High Elves, and that Park Sooho's status window was probably not functioning properly after he touched the Arukamite. He further explained that after coming into contact with an Arukamite of this size, an error appears on the status window, causing all skills that use dimensional energy to halt for approximately 24 hours. Gilbert Reynolds, the director of England's security service, was informed by David that all the information has been recorded. Reynolds then contacted the doctor to inquire about the success of the test, which the doctor confirmed. Reynolds believed that if the technology worked on Sooho, it would also be effective on the aliens from planet Aruka. The doctor agreed but reminded Reynolds to exercise caution as the Aruka elves are close allies and have contributed greatly to their technological advancements. Reynolds argued that alliances do not last forever and that Aruka may eventually turn against them. The doctor responded by saying there are still many challenges to overcome before the technology can be commercialized. The director stressed the urgency of the situation as the incidence of crime committed by the awakened individuals is increasing globally. Despite the necessity of maintaining a symbiotic relationship with the Aruka elves, the director maintained that it could end at any moment. The doctor attempted to reason with the director, but the director persisted, stating that the balance of power will soon shift and it's crucial to find a solution to regulate it. After the conversation, the doctor recognized that Sooho posed a challenge as the individual had physical attributes with an average of 8,000, making it unclear if they could defeat such powerful monsters. Meanwhile, Sooho was rushing back with a resolve to destroy Hero. At a meeting of the Sooho Guild, Junho informed the members that they were in trouble and presented them with Sooho's message. The members were horrified. Reports were calling the guild a disgrace due to the confrontation with Hero. The comments on the reports made the members angry. Jeshik asked about the government's response, and Dingsu replied that they only expressed pity. This made Jeshik furious, as the government allowed a foreign invader to enter the country and attack them, and they didn't even apprehend Hero. Dingsu then saw a report that Hero had already returned to Japan. Junho tried to calm the group and said that it would be problematic if this became an international issue, so they needed to handle it themselves. Another article from America suggested that the Sooho Guild should move to the US for protection. The members believed that only Sooho could resolve the situation and then remembered what Hero had told them. Hero had threatened to kill them within 10 days if Sooho was not brought to him. Jeshik felt humiliated as he couldn't even move. They knew that all they could do was wait for Sooho's return. Junho said that they needed to take action before Sooho came back. Junho and Dingsu were outside searching for something when Junho received a call from Kim Mizo, who thanked them for their cooperation and asked them not to hold a grudge against the government. Junho hung up and informed Dingsu that they were going to the beast farm as he suspected the bureau had placed listening devices in key locations before they left. Dingsu defended Mizo, saying she always helped them, but Junho agreed and added that enemies often hide close to home. Junho and Dingsu arrived at the beast farm and discussed the growth of the family and the whereabouts of the owner. They saw some monkeys in the trees and recognized them as Japanese monkeys. However, a flash report caught their attention and informed them of Park Sooho attacking Tokyo. As Park Sooho landed, the people nearby panicked. He yelled for Hero to come out. The criminal task force of the Awakener Federation had arrived at the scene, along with tank battalions and unmanned air drone battalions. Junho and Dingsu were concerned as they saw reports about the situation. At the Japanese Ministry of Defense, a combat satellite was targeted on Sooho. Daigo reminded the minister that they were attempting to get Sooho on their side, but the minister responded that Saseki had arrived and they needed to assess whether to use their defenses. Park Sooho continued calling out for Hero when Saseki approached him. Saseki informed Sooho that he was under arrest for illegal entry, causing social chaos, spreading fear, and other violations of public order. Sooho asked if he was Hero, and Saseki introduced himself and told Sooho to get down from the wyvern and surrender peacefully. Sooho replied that if Saseki was not Hero, then he should leave. Saseki, seeing that Sooho wouldn't comply, used his skill binding to try to capture him, but Sooho sent Saseki flying with a punch. Saseki recovered, bewildered by what had happened. Sooho praised Saseki, saying that if their territory is under attack, they should protect it with their life. Park Sooho then broke free from the binding, impressing Saseki, who commented that if he hadn't cast a debuff in time, his face would have been crushed. Sooho told Saseki to leave, but Saseki continued to attack. Sooho used air vortex, sending Saseki crashing into a building, stunning the crowd and those at the Ministry of Defense. Sooho continued calling out for Hero. The Minister of Defense was impressed by Sooho and deemed him more valuable than Hero. Sooho threatened to burn everything if Hero wasn't brought out. People ran away after hearing his threat. A police officer approached Sooho and asked him to stop, but Sooho demanded that Hero be brought to him and gave them 30 minutes to comply. The officer explained that Hiro couldn't come at the moment because he was raiding a level 7 dungeon and it would take at least 10 days for him to come out. Suho expressed disbelief that someone who takes 10 days to clear a dungeon would dare to provoke him and said he would return after 10 days before leaving. Those at the Ministry of Defense expressed concern that allowing Suho to leave would lead to international embarrassment, but the minister argued that using the full power of the defense army against one awakener would be more humiliating. Meanwhile, Suho's group cheered as they saw the news of Suho declaring war against Hiro and sending Saseki flying. Another report stated that the Japanese government viewed the incident as a threat to Japan and demanded that Suho be extradited into their custody, threatening to declare war against Korea if this demand was not met. Suho's group was having a discussion when they noticed Suho's arrival. They heard Gunwoo tell Suho that they had been idle. As Suho entered the room, the group members cowered, sensing his anger. Meanwhile, the government officials debated on whether to surrender Suho to the Japanese government. The president arrived and inquired if Suho and Sungwoo knew each other, to which the assistant replied that there was no connection between the two. The officials were perplexed as to why Sungwoo would attack Suho. The director presented two theories. Either Hiro had grown envious of Suho's rapid rise to fame, or the Japanese government had planned to scout Suho. The director emphasized Suho's significance, explaining that not only Japan but countries all over the world were eager to recruit him due to his unique skill of mastering the elemental magic typically only performed by the high elves of planet Aruka. The officials were told about the recent rise in the number of people who had returned from the planet Aruka after studying it with great difficulty. However, there was no awakener who could perform area magic. One of the officials asked if it was the instant harvest ability, and the director confirmed it. The director explained that Suho was like a winning lottery ticket that could bring in a lot of money. The officials changed their stance and decided to protect Suho, even if it resulted in war. While Suho's group stumbled out of a portal, exhausted, Suho told them to get up as they still had 10 rounds left. He then received a call from Kim Mizo, who informed him of Japan's reaction and proposed a solution. Suho then met with the manager of SPFC, Max, who told him about Hiro's provocation. Suho was confused as to why he would do such a thing, and Max explained that it was all for the sake of earning money. If the match between Suho and Hiro took place, an astronomical amount of money could be earned. Max advised Suho to accept the match, saying that if he agreed, he could prevent a war from happening and earn a huge sum of money. Suho asked if he could legally kill Hiro if he agreed, to which Max confirmed that the SPFC rules wouldn't hold him accountable for any accidental deaths. Kim Mizo then informed Max they would discuss the matter further with Suho and get back to him. Max left, and Mizo assured Suho that he didn't have to agree to the match if he didn't want to, and that there wouldn't be a war. Suho expressed his desire to fight Hiro, and Mizo suggested donating the proceeds of the match to Japan to alleviate tensions. Suho agreed. Mizo then gave Suho an official government order, inviting him to attend the annual General Assembly of all guilds, a gathering of all major level 6 guilds. Suho mentioned that their guild wasn't yet level 6, but Mizo informed him that it had officially reached that level and presented him with a certificate. The government was also handing over the Ajuyeongbu region to Suho and granting him autonomous rights over the territory, officially recognizing the land managed by the Suho Guild as the 13th area of Seoul. Suho informed the others about the recent developments. They expressed their dissatisfaction with the government who had ignored their struggles before. Suho explained that the decision had already been made and the government would establish a city first. He informed them that they would be moving their headquarters from Namyangju and dividing the new territories into smaller districts. Myungjin then came across some news stating that with the agriculturalization of Suho's land, Korea was poised to become a major grain producer, bringing in a significant amount of income. The news of Hiro's team completing a level 7 dungeon in just 8 days spread, along with Hiro's response to Suho's taunting, saying that he would teach Suho some manners. The announcement of the Suho and Hiro match in the SPFC also garnered attention, with many people betting on Hiro to win. Another report showed that Suho was set to receive a massive payout of 240 billion, the highest fighter money dividend in history. Suho's group was shocked to see the amount of money, but then learned that Suho planned to donate all the fight money to Japan. They understood the reason for the donation, and Suho arrived to tell them to keep training. Suho then headed to Ujeongbu to check it out. Meanwhile, Akiko hacked into the Awakener Bureau's system to gather information about Suho. She was shocked to discover that Suho spent 1,000 years on another planet. As the fight between Suho and Hiro approached, the odds heavily favored Hiro's victory. The tickets for their match in the Tokyo Stadium had already been sold out 5 days prior. 2 days before the match, Park Sooho remained secluded within his own territory, Suho Land. Akiko informed Hiro that according to the records, Suho had spent 1,000 years on another planet before returning to Earth. Hiro asked if Suho had also regressed several times for 1,000 years like he had, but Akiko was certain that Suho hadn't used a regression stone. Hiro was skeptical, but Akiko explained that Suho had only spent 10 years on the other planet, where time flows 2 times faster than on Earth. Hence, spending 1,000 years on a planet that is not tied to Earth's time wasn't impossible. And this also explains why Hiro and Suho have never met, as Hiro has regressed 20 years 25 times. Hiro wonders how Suho didn't age during this time, and Akiko researches and finds the existence of the rare item called the Crimson Divine Peach. This fruit only appears once every 1,000 years on one of the planets and disappears after 10 days, but grants eternal youth and immortality to whoever eats it. Akiko expresses concern as Suho has lived longer than him, but Hiro responds that he won't let anyone interfere with his plans. On the day of the match, the news was still searching for Suho's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Suho was occupied with farming on his territory, while Dingsu informed him there were only 3 hours left and told Suho that he had to leave. Suho summoned his wyvern and instructed Dingsu to raid some dungeons before he departed. In the stadium, the crowd assumed that Suho had given up on the match. Hiro inquired about any news regarding Suho, and Akiko informed him that Suho had recently expanded his land to Ujeongbu. Hiro was confident that Suho knew what was to come in the future, as the first level 7 dungeon to open in Korea was in Ujeongbu. He remembered the combat unit that attempted to challenge the level 7 dungeon as soon as it appeared was destroyed, and Korea, which lost half of its total S-rank awakeners, was unable to prevent the dungeon break in the end. The use of large explosives to eliminate the level 7 monsters resulted in Ujeongbu being reduced to ashes. Soon after, there were numerous dungeon breaches on the continent, and the monsters that traveled south through North Korea caused South Korea to completely collapse. Hiro believed that the government was trying to prevent all of this from happening by propelling Suho forward. Suho made his entrance and landed on the stage to the cheers of the Korean crowd. He called back his wyvern and challenged Hiro. The crowd yelled Hiro's name as he stood up, but Akiko remained worried, even though Hiro reassured her that he would return safely. Hiro approached Suho and asked if he was a survivor of the apocalypse and if there was another regression stone and how many years he could regress with it, but Suho was unaware of what he was referring to. Thinking that Suho was feigning ignorance, Hiro attacked. Suho countered with a punch that sent Hiro flying and bouncing on the floor before hitting the barrier. The onlookers were taken aback. Suho approached Hiro and mocked him for his weakness, telling him to get up. Hiro rose to his feet, confused by what was happening. Suho told Hiro he was like a frog in a well, causing Hiro to become enraged and attack, but he was repeatedly hit by Suho. Suho then used a tornado to deliver a powerful kick, causing Hiro to crash onto the ground. Suho followed up with a fire skill, destroying the area and leaving the spectators stunned as they watched Hiro getting overpowered. Finally, they saw Suho holding Hiro by the neck. Suho realized that Hiro was only pretending to be dead and asked why he came searching for him. Hiro answered that he wanted to kill Suho and that he deserved to die as his HP recovered. Suho was puzzled. Hiro explained that his plans, which he had made through 500 years of hard work and sacrifice, had been ruined because of Suho as his appearance started to change. Suho was perplexed by what Hiro was saying. Hiro then transformed into a monster and shouted that he needed to save the Earth. He used the Fury of God, a devastating skill that destroyed the area and sent Suho flying back. The stadium was ruined, injuring and killing those in the vicinity. Hiro was pleased with the Fury of God, a skill so deadly and powerful that the human body cannot handle it, and so he had to call upon the physique of a monster. He couldn't believe that he had used the skill, which he had been saving for the level 8 boss, the Toad Monarch, on a mere human like Suho. Hiro was taken aback when he spotted Suho emerging unscathed from the rubble, and he inquired about the source of Suho's immense strength. Suho told him that it wasn't due to any item, but rather a skill named Forest's Blessing that fully restored lost stamina and mana in just 5 seconds. Hiro was infuriated by Suho's smile and launched a sudden attack, shouting that the planet would be destroyed because of him. Suho saw Hiro's information and realized that he was a U-rank monster hybrid. Suho effortlessly blocked Hiro's attacks and retaliated with a swift kick. Suho followed up with another kick, sending Hiro flying backward. Hiro was stunned that there was a human he couldn't defeat, even after transforming into a monster, and came to the conclusion that there was no hope for this regression. He decided to start over. However, Suho continued his barrage of attacks, stating that he would teach him the harsh realities. Hiro was using the stone of replica while enduring Suho's strikes and realized that it was nearly complete. He thought that in the next regression, he would have Suho's power and even his soul. But as Hiro tried to attack, he was hit by Suho's fusion, sending him flying and crashing through walls, landing near a group of people who cursed him. The stone of replica was shattered, and Hiro saw Suho land beside him. Suho informed him that the reason he wasn't able to save Earth for such a long time was due to his own weakness. Hiro attempted to speak, but Suho cut him off, warning him never to enter his territory again or face death. Hiro retorted that 95% of humanity would perish in the apocalypse and that Suho would soon meet his own demise. Suho replied that Hiro's past wouldn't dictate his future and there is no future for a guy who lives in the past like him. Then delivered a final blow to end the battle. Sooyoung was observing the fight and recalled asking Suho why they couldn't be together. Suho responded that she was still too weak and that their strength must be balanced or one side would crumble. She cursed and walked away. The news reported Suho's overwhelming victory and the multiple casualties at the stadium. Another report stated that Hiro was unconscious for a week. Suddenly waking up, Hiro remembered Suho's threat and saw the news and people's negative comments about him. Akiko entered and took his phone, saying that people were simply shocked by his defeat. Hiro told her that he wanted to be alone for a while and stood up, seeing the people outside jeering at him. He then looked at the stone of replica and noticed it was interrupted and thought that if he had held on a bit longer, he could have copied Suho's skills. He summoned the regression stone, an item that would allow him to return to Earth 20 years ago. He realized that his only option was to go back and eliminate Suho, which he could do in 2 years. Suddenly, 3 people entered Hiro's room and told him they were ordered to bring him in. Hiro smirked, and one of the men warned him to come peacefully, stating that there were 2 more people outside. Hiro mocked them, saying that 5 of them wouldn't be enough to defeat him. He surmised that the defense agency had recorded his conversation with Suho and was after the items in his inventory. Hiro asked the men if they were planning to torture him, and one of them cursed at him. Hiro then declared that Japan would soon regret their mistake. The room exploded as the people outside were knocked down. The 2 men outside saw 2 of their members being held by Hiro. Hiro warned them not to move and threatened to kill the man he was holding, then demanded to know who had given the order. The man replied that it was the commissioner. Hiro understood that the commissioner was simply waiting for him to falter and then moved in to strike. The leader tried to defend the commissioner, but Hiro pointed out that they were only after the items in his inventory. He declared that there was no stopping the country's greed and asked if Akiko was aware of what was happening. The man confirmed, and Hiro became incensed, killing the man he was holding and attacking the remaining members. News of the growth of the Suho Guild and Ujeongbu becoming the 13th section of Seoul was reported. Dingsu then saw news of Hiro killing 2 S-rankers and fleeing Japan. At a conference, Mr. Takeo suspected Hiro to be a spy sent by Korea and demanded an explanation from the Korean government regarding the recent terrorist attack related to Lee Sun-woo. The Blue House denied the accusation. Dingsu, worried that Lee Sun-woo might come after them, looked for Suho. As he was running, he saw people running away and thought Sun-woo was already in the area. He ran with the group, but Jeshik told him that a portal was opening and they were heading there. They found that the portal was a level 7 dungeon with only 42 days left until it burst. The group was worried as they thought 42 days was too short. Junho realized that they were too focused on becoming the 13th section and had taken in people without considering their capabilities. If a break occurred, they couldn't guarantee everyone's survival. He was at a loss on what to do and thought of looking for Suho, but they noticed an animal and realized it was Suho. Suho explains to the group that they moved to a bigger hunting ground where a large prey has presented itself. Dingsu is concerned that they are still low level, but Suho tells them that the prey is offering itself, but if they keep running away, they will always be looking back towards their past. Suho, along with Myungjin and Jeshik, decide to enter the dungeon, but later choose to bring Dingsu instead. Inside, they are surprised by an undead. News of a level 7 dungeon appearing in Korea creates panic, and the airports are filled with people trying to escape. It is the 8th level 7 dungeon in the world. The officials discuss the situation and estimate that they need to clear the dungeon twice a day to prevent it from bursting. They are uncertain if Sooho's party can handle it, and they find that even the guilds are struggling with the increasing number of level 6 dungeons. The officials discussed the situation and considered evacuating the people to Seoul, but they realized that a level 7 dungeon appearing in Seoul would cause everyone to die. The director remembered the wall of trees in Sooho land and believed it would be the safest place if the level 7 dungeon there was taken care of. They contacted Kim Mizo for updates on the situation and were informed that everything was fine in Sooho land. The Ministry of Defense also dispatched Sun Jin-woo's 707A Special Forces unit to Gyeongbu. The director decided to act as the on-site commander for the level 7 dungeon and planned to go to the location. Meanwhile, Akiko was imprisoned and Mr. Takeo visited her. She informed him that he was mistaken, and Mr. Takeo displayed a bracelet, claiming that they already had information about it. He believed that even Hiro was unaware of this. The diary held details about the future, and they discovered that Hiro had gathered individuals with great potential, making it seem like he trained them for his own gain. He rose to fame as the country's hero and champion, all made possible by the regression stone. Akiko smirked, realizing that Mr. Takeo wanted the stone. He asked her where Hiro was hiding and promised to fulfill her wish if she told him. Akiko replied that she didn't know, as one of the Awakeners confirmed her truthfulness. She stated that they shouldn't have made Hiro their enemy. Takeo was informed of Hiro's last known location and ordered the use of drones to track him down. He was confident that Hiro had the regression stone in his possession and aimed to acquire it for himself. Meanwhile, Hiro saw a news report of Sooho entering a level 7 dungeon with only 3 people and took out a notebook to record information about them. He noticed another piece of news about the best combat team in Korea heading to the level 7 dungeon and remembered Sun Jin-woo. He recalled that Korea's destruction began after the combat team led by Korea's number 1 was defeated. Unit 707A arrived on Sooho's territory with the director, and Junho informed them that Sooho did not like outsiders entering their land. The director argued that it was a national crisis and not just the Sooho Guild's responsibility to clear it. Myungjin discovered he had a new skill called King of Nirvana but needed 1,000 achievement points to unlock it. He calculated he would need to kill 12 level 1 dungeon bosses to achieve this. Meanwhile, Sun Jin-woo told the director they planned to start the raid immediately, but the director advised them to wait at least a day. He explained that even Lee Sun-woo's team had casualties and they lacked manpower compared to Japan, so losing even one person would be a huge loss. Furthermore, Sooho had not yet emerged. Jin-woo agreed to wait for a day. Mizo visited Soo-young and asked why she hadn't greeted her when she arrived. She teased her, asking if it was because Sooho was not around. Sei arrived with food and informed them about Sanji being rejected by Sooho. Miss Mo thought they were dating, but Sei explained that Sooho rejected Sanji because she was weak. Sei then asked Miss Mo to introduce her to Sooho, as she was among the strongest women in the country. Soo-young was angry after hearing Sei. Sun Jin-woo's team, including Soo-young, was preparing to enter a dungeon. Before entering, Jin-woo informed the team of their plan and reminded them of their status as the top team in the country, then entered the dungeon. However, 2 members failed to enter before the portal closed, leaving only 28 members inside. To everyone's surprise, Sooho's group emerged from the dungeon, with Ding-soo and Jeshik collapsing upon exit. The news quickly spread that Sooho had successfully cleared a level 7 dungeon in just 24 hours. The director expressed gratitude to Sooho and requested that he share his strategy for the dungeon. Mizo added that even maps or details about the monsters would be beneficial to teams preparing for future raids. Sooho asked if they had assembled a combat team on his hunting grounds. The director explained that they were in a state of national emergency and it was wise to have more teams participate. Sooho confidently replied that he was enough. Mizo was surprised by Sooho's words and thought that a level 7 dungeon wasn't a threat to Sooho and sees it as an island full of treasures, and them sending a team was seen as an attempt to take a share of the wealth. Sooho then noticed a large crowd gathered around them. Mizo agreed and stated that no more teams would be sent, but one of the special units was already in the middle of the raid. Upon hearing this, Sooho became furious and asked who had given permission. Mizo pointed to Junho. Sooho then grabbed Junho and went looking for Myungjin, ordering them to bring him immediately. Suho entered the portal while dragging Junho and had Myungjin thrown inside. The doctors monitoring Jeshik and Dingsu were shocked by their dimensional energy levels. When they woke up and realized they were already outside the dungeon, they asked about Suho's whereabouts. They were told that Suho had entered the dungeon with the other members 20 minutes prior. Jeshik estimated that they had 30 minutes, while Dingsu suggested they use all their money to buy items. Meanwhile, Hiro saw the news of Suho completing the dungeon in 24 hours and was shocked. Suho then accomplished a feat again, reducing the time to 21 hours. Junho and Myungjin were also exhausted and received treatment from the healing team. Mizo offered to take care of them, but Suho declared it was a waste of time and said they would recover with sleep once they re-entered the dungeon. Dingsu and Jeshik arrived and greeted Suho. Suho instructed them to carry Junho and Myungjin and follow him. Jeshik was concerned that all the guild members would enter, but Mizo offered to monitor the construction process. The group then re-entered the dungeon. Inside, Suho ordered everyone to wake up. Junho protested and told Suho to let them rest, but Suho explained that they had already slept for 30 minutes and that, with their current levels, 30 minutes of sleep should be sufficient for recovery. The group was surprised to see that their levels had increased. Suho continued, explaining that their bodies were growing stronger at a rapid pace, but their minds hadn't yet caught up, which was why they still felt tired despite having slept enough. Suho scolded the team, saying they needed to get stronger quickly so he could leave the house in their hands while he was away. He then warned them of an incoming enemy. The group easily defeated the skeletons that attacked them. They then encountered a group of undead orcs, and Myungjin used Dragon Ascension to take out some of the orcs. Dingsu summoned a giant crossbow and fired at the monsters, and Jeshik cursed while killing the undead. Junho tried to use his new skill but to no avail. As everyone felt their power waning, Dingsu lost accuracy, and Myungjin realized it was a debuff. They then spotted a banshee behind a horde of undead orcs. Suho summoned his fairies and believed they were faster. Mizo was called to watch a video that Dingsu took inside the dungeon, showing a powerful S-rank undead type monster called a banshee. The banshee has debuff abilities and can attack from range. The director asked if anyone other than Sungwoo had cleared a level 7 dungeon, and Mizo said apart from Suho, no one had returned. They saw Jeshik receive healing and a buff from Suho's fairies, and without this healing, no team could defeat the banshee without casualties. The director asked how long the SF unit had been in the dungeon and was told 9 Earth days had passed, but the unit is weaker than Sungwoo's team and could collapse quickly. The director ordered that they must be saved. The director was then informed that Suho's team had successfully cleared the level 7 dungeon in a surprising 13 hours. The director remembered a way to save the SF unit and ordered the team to hold Suho, but he had already entered the dungeon. Mizo estimated that Suho's fourth raid would take around 6 hours, and there was news of Suho reducing the clear time to 5 hours, while others criticized the director's poor command. Suho emerged from the dungeon and was approached by the director and Mizo, who asked for his help in saving the SF unit. Suho questioned why he should help the thieves, to which Mizo explained that the team led by Jin had already been in the dungeon for 9 days, 3 days outside, and spending more than 15 days in the dungeon drops the survival rate below 50%. The director admitted fault, but Suho asked how he could save those already inside. Mizo explained that as long as there are soldiers that are still alive in the last dungeon before the dungeon break, and under the condition that they don't go over the capacity limit, additional people can enter the same dungeon. Suho realized that he needed to complete the remaining dungeons as fast as possible and rescue the soldiers in the last dungeon. The director appealed to Suho, as he was the only one who could help. Suho asked if there were still open spots, to which Mizo responded that there were 2 available. Suho figured that if he could clear it 4 to 5 times a day, he could reach the soldiers before it was too late. The director stressed the urgency, explaining that the longer they waited, the lower the survival rate. He offered to compensate Suho for his time and earnings, but Suho declined, telling others to focus on their own training. Suho then headed to the dungeons. News of Suho rescuing 707A unit was reported. Suho entered the dungeon 10 minutes ago and was expected to take 2 hours to clear it. However, people were shocked when Suho emerged after just 13 minutes on his 6th try. He then immediately re-entered the dungeon. The following report was Suho continuously completes 15 dungeon raids with an average clear time of 20 minutes. The reports then said the survival rate of the unit has fallen below 50% and has led many people to gather in the square and light candles to pray for their safe return. Meanwhile, the 707A unit was heading to their base camp. Soo-young signaled to stop as some of the members was anxious. They saw a wraith from the distance. The team attempted to conceal themselves, but one member unintentionally made a noise and attracted the attention of a wraith. The wraith alerted the nearby monsters, and the snipers managed to eliminate it, but they were too late as they were already surrounded by a large group of monsters. Sei commanded them to prepare for battle, but while they were fighting, they received word from the base camp that an unknown monster was approaching. Sei attacked upon seeing it, but Soo-young tried to intervene and was hit by one of the undead. The team noticed a decrease in their combat power and was ordered to retreat. Sooho, who had already cleared the dungeon 87 times in 6 days, re-entered the final dungeon to try and save the combat unit. The Banshee reduced Sei's stats as they fought, while the rest of the team struggled against the monsters. Meanwhile, Jinwoo's group reached the boss room but received news that their base was under attack and the main squad was engaged in battle. One member suggested going back to save them, but they were suddenly trapped by a barrier separating Jinwoo from the rest of the team, and Death Knights appeared from the ground. The Banshee was defeated and Sei fell to the ground, unable to move and thinking it was the end. Soo-young was also on the ground, thinking of Sooho. Suddenly, she saw a fairy by her side, and the other members saw fairies as well. Sei noticed her HP recovering, and Soo-young recognized the skill. Sooho then arrived and defeated the monsters on his way. The combat team regained their strength and counterattacked. Sei quickly killed the undead around her, and they saw Sooho take out most of the monsters. Soo-young ran to Sooho and hugged him while crying. Sei was surprised to see Sooho and Soo-young together. The combat team realized that this must be the final dungeon and that Sooho had cleared everything by himself. However, they were confused when they saw Sooho pushing Soo-young away. Sooho told Soo-young that she couldn't be his mate because she was too weak, but she insisted on hugging him for a moment. Sooho pushed her away a little too hard, causing Soo-young to fall onto a rock. She cursed at Sooho, who approached her and asked if she was okay. He explained that she would be in danger if she stayed near him. Sooho received a message from his fairies, but a monster emerged from the ground. Sei suggested they head to the base camp and search for the scouting party, but Sooho informed them that they wouldn't find anything even if they went and that there were 5 survivors in the boss room. Sei realized it must be the scouting party. Sooho told them to follow him and warned that the group might die if they were late. Sooho then sprinted off, leaving the combat team behind as a horde of ghouls appeared in front of them. Sooho summoned his beasts and the combat team was amazed and Sei was captivated. Soo-young warned the others that a flying entity was approaching them. Sooho greeted the Lick, surprising the combat team as it was the strongest king of the undead. At the same time, the scouting group was confronted by the Death Knights. Jinwoo realized that the enemy was a Lick and that destroying its vessel would cause it and its army to die. One of the members cautioned Jinwoo, but he replied that he was the only one who could do it and hoped for their survival before entering the building. Sooho quickly eliminated the horde of undead with his fire skill and summoned a wyvern, using his mirror skill to create 4 wyvern heads that destroyed the Lick. He then instructed the combat team to follow him. Inside the building, Jinwoo was blocked by a wall of monsters and struggled as he was overwhelmed by the beasts. Meanwhile, the scouting team outside was struggling, with one of them injured by a Death Knight. Sooho arrived, charging in boar form and changing to a bear to attack the knights. He then shifted back to human form and finished off the enemies with his fire skills. Sooho asked about one missing member and was told that the captain had gone inside the temple. He told the team to wait for the main squad and stay there, then went inside to save the captain. Sooho shattered the barrier and stormed into the temple. He burned the monsters and transformed into a wolf, tearing down the wall. He discovered Jinwoo still alive but being drained of his life force by a vessel. Sooho realized that if he had arrived a moment later, the Lick would have been resurrected. He destroyed the vessel, causing the temple to explode and the undead to disappear. Sooho emerged from the dungeon carrying Jinwoo, reassuring the team that he was still alive. The crowd cheered as Sooho and the combat team exited the dungeon. Despite being approached by many people, Sooho simply took flight, with Sei gazing at him wistfully. Sei asked Soo-young if she had feelings for Sooho, to which Soo-young denied. Sei then inquired if it was okay for her to ask Sooho out, as she believed she had found her soulmate. Hiro saw the news and was shocked. He realized his phone balance was low and feared his accounts were locked. He considered selling the blood crystals in his inventory but knew he would be caught. Some thugs bumped into him and he overheard them making fun of Lee Sunwoo. He decided to use them as offerings to enhance the regression stone. Junwoo woke up and was told that Park Sooho had saved him and the other soldiers. Meanwhile, Sei attempted to visit Sooho and brought food dressed as a bunny maid. Ding-soo and Junho informed Sei that Sooho was still asleep. She gave them the food and asked to let her know when Sooho wakes up. Ding-soo and Junho were puzzled. Inside the room, Sooho was sleeping in boar form. Junho considered waking him up, but Ding-soo warned him that the last time he tried, he nearly got bitten to death. Sei returned and entered the room, only to find Sooho had transformed into a cat. Meanwhile, Junwoo and Sooyoung ran into each other and were both headed to see Sooho. Sei was snuggling with Sooho and said that their mission would end the next day and they would have to return to the guild. She wanted to spend time with him. Ding-soo reminded Sooho that the time for the transformation was almost over. Sooyoung then appeared and asked for Sooho. Sooho returned to his human form and was found by Sooyoung lying on Sei's chest. Enraged, Sooyoung threw a box at Sooho and cursed before storming away. Sooho woke up and was thanked by Junwoo, but went back to sleep. Meanwhile, a woman was shown being pursued. She entered a room and found someone inside. The man identified himself as being from the Criminal Task Force of Korea's Awakener Bureau and asked about a woman who died from a gunshot wound to the head at a murder scene in Sillim-dong but was now alive. The woman's eyes changed as the man brandished his gun. The person outside broke down the door and entered but saw that the man was being held by a monster. Mizo informed the director that the executives were waiting in the conference room at the bureau. The general manager urgently summoned the director to the bureau, stating that the situation was critical. News reports showed dungeons breaking around the world as people tried to escape. The director was informed that the ongoing monster wave that started in Harbin was now beyond what conventional weapons could handle. If the path of the monsters was redirected by nuclear weapons, they would head toward North Korea instead of Russia. The rising number of dungeons in Seoul and the ineffectiveness of level 6 guilds were also exposed, with experts warning that the city was no longer safe. They were informed of a serial murder case transferred to them by the police department. 2 members of the special task force investigating the suspect were killed, and the suspect fled. The director inquired if the killer was an awakener and was told it was a vampire who had died and been resurrected 3 times. The director was getting a headache and decided to disband the SF combined unit and return after the task was finished tomorrow. Mizo instructed Sooyoung to return to the detection team. Sooyoung requested to be sent to the most pressing location with the aim of improving her skills. The director was informed that requests for assistance had already been received from 2 guilds. The break time was too short and the shortage of combat teams was a problem. One person said that only Park Sooho could solve the issue. Another person pointed out that the number of negative comments about Sooho was rising and suggested they take action. And was told that people were saying that if he wanted to, he could handle all the dungeons in Seoul, but he wasn't doing anything, and the guild association had noted that the Sooho guild was not doing much in comparison to the benefits it was receiving. The director was frustrated. Sooho inquired with Ding-soo about what the rest of the team was up to. Ding-soo informed him that Jeshik was training new recruits, Junho was supervising construction, and Myungjin was often going out and talking about rescuing vagabonds. Sooho then considered constructing a moat. Ding-soo then noticed a news report about a candlelight rally being held as people were dissatisfied with Sooho for not taking action while Seoul was in chaos due to the dungeons. Sooho responded to Ding-soo's question, asking why he would hunt in other people's territory. Mizo arrived and informed them that the Awakener Bureau had made a request for assistance, but Sooho declined. Mizo attempted to explain, but then an explosion occurred at the blood crystal power plant. Sooho arrived and used a water vortex to extinguish the fire, but people fell from the building. Sooho summoned his wyvern to save them.